Good morning. Merci, Monsieur le Président, distinguished members of the panel, dear delegates. 76 years ago, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide as its first human rights convention, just one day before the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Today, there are once again horrifying indications of atrocity crimes up to and including genocide in several regions of the world. We are living through dangerous times as deep divisions and extreme views feed both conflict and violence. The global norms that protect us all, starting with the United Nations Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, are under unprecedented strain. The United Nations was set up after the Holocaust in large part to prevent any repetition of the heinous crime of genocide. But prevention without action is an empty slogan. And there are many concrete actions that we can take to prevent genocide and other atrocity crimes. Mr. President, first and foremost, prevention requires all governments and all parties to conflict to respect international law fully. Member states have the primary responsibility to prevent conflict and to build peace. The rules of war were designed to limit and prevent human suffering in times of armed conflict. Wanton disregard for them has led to the current extremes of human suffering and risks of genocide and other atrocity crimes that we see today. The new Agenda for Peace, agreed as part of the Pact for the Future last September, has a strong emphasis on prevention. Through it, all states reaffirmed their commitment to their obligations under international law, including the prohibition of genocide, of crimes against humanity, and war crimes overall. And yet, the daily litany of transgressions continues unabated. Second, prevention means understanding root causes and responding quickly to early warnings of the risk of genocide. Genocide and other atrocity crimes are preceded by clear patterns of discrimination, of exclusion, and incitement to hatred based on race, ethnicity, religion, or other characteristics. Hate speech is often a precursor to genocide, making the United Nations strategy and plan of action on hate speech all the more important. Digital technologies and AI have amplified the impacts of hate speech, often disproportionately targeting women and girls. In fact, some 70% of those targeted by online hate belong to minority communities. Early warning signs also include other systematic violations of human rights, often perpetrated as a matter of policy against a people, a minority, or a community. Third, prevention means looking beyond the crimes themselves and considering activities that may be enabling or contributing to those crimes. Among these, arms sales and transfers, the provision of military, logistical, or financial support to parties to conflicts that are marked by violations of international law. These are obvious examples that merit careful review. Fourth, accountability plays a critical part in prevention. When there are allegations of serious violations of international law, it is essential that there is due reckoning through credible and impartial accountability processes. That is why our office documents and reports on human rights violations and abuses around the world. I encourage you to support these efforts, which are based on a robust and proven methodology. Accountability also demands consistent support to international mechanisms, including the International Criminal Court, full cooperation in the investigation and prosecution of human rights violations or abuses amounting to international crimes, and respect for the binding decisions of such mechanisms. Universal jurisdiction enables states to investigate and try crimes under international law in national courts consistent with international standards. This is another important accountability mechanism, and I urge all states to make full use of it. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, our office and the wider United Nations system are working at the global level to prevent and end genocide and other atrocity crimes through strengthening advocacy and accountability for violations of international law, and by focusing on hate speech, the misuse of social media platforms, and incitement to religious hatred. We launched a regional strategy 2 years ago in the Horn of Africa that aims to prevent the spread and dissemination of all forms of hate speech, online and in real life. We also run education programs on previous genocides to raise awareness and make people aware that such things can and do happen. And our UN human rights teams around the world work with UN partners and governments to promote ways of countering incitement to racial, religious and other forms of hatred. I hope today's panel will help us to build on our joint work with the Office of the Special Advisor to the Secretary General on the Prevention of Genocide, including through advisory services and technical assistance to states. Preventing and avoiding genocide and mass atrocity crimes requires an unwavering commitment from states, from civil society organizations, the private sector and beyond, to the causes of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law that exists to protect us all. When states undermine, denigrate, or ignore international laws and the institutions that uphold them, they increase the risk of crimes of this magnitude occurring again. Genocide happens when humanity's moral compass fails, when hateful ideologies proliferate, and when the dehumanization of an entire group of people is allowed to take root and to spread. Together, let's move towards a world in which genocide and other atrocity crimes are inconceivable, or if all else fails, then they are punished. Thank you, Mr. President.